It is said that the status of the women in the country establishes the progress of a country. And the National Commission for Women in India, established in January 1992 under the Commission for Women's Protection Act of 1990, has worked with the objective of redressing the grievances faced by the Indian women in the society today. The Commission works to address the physical, mental, and special issues being faced by Indian women, not only in their personal lives but also in their workplaces. It is an institution which is working towards creating and building the awareness amongst the people in the society towards the welfare of women, towards the issues of women, and providing them counseling with the help of special cells which have been established for this purpose. It also analyzes the legislative measures which have been adopted in India in favor of women, whether they are constitutional and whether they are actually being implemented. The analysis also therefore leads to the conclusion as to whether these measures, legislative measures adopted in the country, are actually successful, and if not, what are the amendments that can be made towards addressing the real problems being faced by women today. Institutional Arrangements for Civic and Human Rights, National Commission for Women. The National Commission for Women was set up as a statutory body in January 1992 under the National Commission for Women Act 1990, Act number 20 of 1990 of Government of India, to number 1, review the constitutional and legal safeguards for women. Number 2, recommend remedial legislative measures. Number 3, to facilitate redressal of grievances. Number 4, to advise the government on all policy matters affecting women. The Constitution of the Commission, provided under Section 3 of the National Commission for Women Act 1990. Section 3(1) says the central government shall constitute a body to be known as the National Commission for Women to exercise the powers conferred on and to perform the functions assigned to it under this Act. The Commission shall consist of a chairperson committed to the cause of women to be nominated by the central government, 5 members to be nominated by the central government from amongst persons of ability, integrity and standing who have had experience in law or legislation, trade unionism, management of an industry potential of women, women's voluntary organizations including women activists, administration, economic development, health, education or social welfare. Provided that at least 1 member each shall be from amongst persons belonging to the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes respectively. Third, a member secretary to be nominated by the central government who shall be an expert in the field of management, organizational structure or sociological movement, or an officer who is a member of a civil service of the Union or of an All India service or holds a civil post under the Union with appropriate experience. The mandate of the Commission is provided under Section 10 of the National Commission for Women's Act 1990. Subsection 1 says, the Commission shall perform all or any of the following functions, namely, to investigate and examine all matters relating to the safeguards provided for women under the constitutional and other laws. To present to the central government annually and at such other times as the Commission may deem fit reports upon the working of those safeguards. To make in such reports recommendations for the effective implementation of those safeguards for the improving the conditions of women by the Union or any state. To review from time to time the existing provisions of the Constitution and other laws affecting women and recommend amendments thereto so as to suggest remedial legislative measures to meet any lacunae, inadequacies or shortcomings in such legislation. To take up cases of violation of the provisions of the Constitution and of other laws relating to women with the appropriate authorities. To look into complaints and take suo motu notice of the matters relating to deprivation of women's rights, non-implementation of laws enacted to provide protection to women and also to achieve the objective of equality and development, non-compliance of policy decisions, guidelines or instructions aimed at mitigating hardships and ensuring welfare and providing relief to women, and take up the issues arising out of such matters with appropriate authorities. To call for special studies or investigations into specific problems or situations arising out of discrimination and atrocities against women and identify the constraints so as to recommend strategies for their removal. To undertake promotional and educational research so as to suggest ways of ensuring due representation of women in all spheres and identify factors responsible for impeding their advancement, such as lack of access to housing and basic services, inadequate support services and technologies for reducing drudgery and occupational health hazards and for increasing their productivity. To participate and advise on the planning process of socio-economic development of women, to evaluate the progress of the development of women under the Union and any state, to inspect or cause to inspect a jail, remand home, women's institution or other place of custody where women are kept as prisoners or otherwise, and take up with the concerned authorities for remedial action if found necessary. To fund litigation involving issues affecting a large body of women, to make periodical reports to the government on any matter pertaining to women and in particular various difficulties under which women fall. Any other matter which may be referred to it by the central government. Subsection 2 says, the central government shall cause all the reports referred to in clause B of subsection 1 to be laid before each House of Parliament along with the memorandum explaining the action taken or proposed to be taken on the recommendations relating to the Union and the reasons for the non-acceptance, if any, of any such recommendations. Subsection 3. Where any such report or any part thereof relates to any matter with which any state government is concerned, the Commission shall forward a copy of such report or part to such state government, who shall cause it to be laid before the legislature of the state along with a memorandum explaining the action taken or proposed to be taken on the recommendations relating to the state and the reasons for the non-acceptance, if any, of any such recommendations. Subsection 4. The Commission shall, while investigating any matter referred to in clause A or subclause 1 of clause F of subsection 1, have all the powers of a civil court trying a suit, and in particular in respect of the following matters, namely, summoning and enforcing the attendance of any person from any part of India and examining him on oath, requiring the discovery and production of any document, receiving evidence on affidavits, requisitioning any public record or copy thereof from any court or office, issuing commissions for the examination of witnesses and documents, any other matter which may be prescribed. The National Commission for Women has adopted a multi-pronged strategy to tackle the problem of violence against women. It has worked for, number one, the generation of legal awareness amongst women, thus equipping them with the knowledge of their legal rights and with a capacity to use these rights. Assisting women in redressal of their grievances through pre-litigation services. Facilitating speedy delivery of justice to women by organizing Parivarik Mahila Lok Adalats in different parts of the country. Review of the existing provisions of the Constitution and other laws affecting women and recommending amendments thereto, any lacunae, inadequacies or shortcomings in such legislations. Organizing promotional activities to mobilize women and get information about their status and recommend paradigm shift in the empowerment of women. Investigate and examine all matters relating to the safeguards provided for women under the Constitution and other laws. Review from time to time the existing provisions of the Constitution and other laws affecting women. Take up cases of violation for the provisions of the Constitution and of other laws. Look into complaints and take suo motu notice of matters. Deprivation of women's rights. Special studies or investigations into specific problems or situations arising out of discrimination and atrocities against women. Undertake promotional and educational research so as to suggest ways of ensuring due representation of women in all spheres and identify factors responsible for impeding their advancement. Advice on the planning processes of socio-economic development of women. Evaluate the progress of the development of women under the Union and any state. Inspect or cause to be inspected a jail, remand home, women's institutions or any other place of custody where women are kept as prisoners or otherwise, and take up with the concerned authorities for remedial action if found necessary. Fund litigation involving issues affecting a large body of women. Importance of the Commission. Women as a class neither belong to a minority group nor are they regarded as a backward class. India has traditionally been a patriarchal society and therefore women have always suffered from social handicaps and disability. It thus becomes necessary to take certain ameliorative steps in order to improve the condition of women in the traditionally male-dominated society. The Constitution does not contain any provision specifically made to favor women as such, though Article 15(3), Article 21 and Article 14 are in favor of women. They are more general in nature and provide for making any special provisions for women, while they are not in themselves such provision. The Supreme Court, through interpretive processes, has tried to extend some safeguards to women through judgments in cases such as Bodhisattva Gautam versus Subhra Chakrabarti, AIR 1996, Supreme Court 922, and the Chairman Railway Board versus Chandrama Das, AIR 2000, Supreme Court 988 cases, where rape was declared a heinous crime, as well as the landmark judgment in Vishakha versus State of Rajasthan, AIR 1997, Supreme Court 3011. The courts have tried to improve the social conditions of Indian women, but these have hardly sufficed to improve the position of women in India. Thus, in the light of these conditions, the Committee on the Status of Women in India, as well as a number of NGOs, social workers and experts who were consulted by the government in 1990, recommended the establishment of an apex body for women. The lack of constitutional machinery, judicial ability and social interest formed the impetus and the need for the formation of the National Commission for Women. It is apparent from the prior mentioned conditions and problems that women in India, though in a better position than their ancestors, were handicapped to a great extent in the early 1990s. And these handicaps and injustices against Indian women prompted the Indian government to constitute the first National Commission for Women in 1992. In keeping with its mandate, the Commission initiated various steps to improve the status of women and worked for their economic empowerment during the year under report. The Commission completed its visits to all the states, union territories except Lakshadweep and prepared gender profiles to assess the status of women and their empowerment. It received a large number of complaints and acted suo motu in several cases to provide speedy justice. It took up the issue of child marriage, sponsored legal awareness programs, Parivarik Mahila Lok Adalats, and reviewed laws such as the Dowry Prohibition Act 1961, PNDT Act 1994, Indian Penal Code 1860, and the National Commission for Women Act 1990 to make them more stringent and effective. It organized workshops, consultations, constituted expert committees on economic empowerment of women, conducted workshop seminars for gender awareness, and took up publicity campaigns against female feticide, violence against women, etc., in order to generate awareness in the society against these evils. In conclusion, I would like to say that the efforts made by the National Commission for Women are indeed commendable. It has worked at a level where it has spread awareness about the legal rights of women, made the women of the lower strata of the society in our country aware of their legal rights and the remedies which are available to them. It has also worked towards providing an atmosphere to these women to come to them and get their issues resolved to a certain extent. This has been done through the medium of the Complaints and Counselling Cell of the National Commission for Women, which looks into various issues being faced by women, whether it is on account of domestic violence, sexual abuse, rape, and other issues being faced by the women in the society today. It has also worked towards spreading awareness through the conducting of seminars and research developments in various educational institutions. The initiatives taken by the Commission have helped the women to become more confident and work towards improving their own status by going into and establishing a clear work atmosphere and earning a good amount of money in their lives. Thank you very much.